Hello, BookTube. I've got a Friday MegaStuff video for you here, a bunch of little miscellaneous bits and pieces that might not make a whole video on their own, but that I'm going to lump together here, starting with a public service announcement. I want to make a public service announcement. I'm bone weary and bitterly depressed that I have to do this, but I feel like I should since a lot of you are listening. Recently, the President of the United States, this is a public service announcement for those of you who live in the United States. Recently, the President of the United States committed a felony in North Carolina on camera in front of a crowd of people by urging them to commit voter fraud, to send in their ballot, their mail-in ballot, and then go to the polling place in person and try to vote again. And Donald Trump, when he said this, loosely couched it as a way to test the system. That if you send in your ballot, your mail-in ballot, and then you go to the polling place to try to vote in person, you shouldn't be able to do it because your ballot will have been counted. You will already have voted. That is vaguely the idea that may have been on his mind. Doesn't matter at all. Intent doesn't matter. He urged his audience to commit a felony, which is a felony by itself in North Carolina. Now, Donald Trump is not going to be prosecuted for that. He did that days ago, and he did it on camera. It's totally unambiguous. So by now, the North Carolina district attorney should already have proffered charges against him for committing a crime in North Carolina. And that attorney didn't and isn't going to, obviously, because this president gets to commit crimes on camera. But I wanted to make a quick public service announcement before we move on to bookish related stuff, assuring anyone who's listening to me, maybe who is thinking about that, that is illegal. That is a felony. Not just urging someone to commit a felony, but the thing itself is a felony. No matter what Donald Trump's lick-spittle attorney general said on the news, where he was asked about it and said, I'm not really sure that voting twice is a crime. It actually is a felony. And the main point of my public service announcement is that it's a felony in every one of the 50 states in the United States, not just North Carolina. You cannot vote twice in an election. And if you send in a mail-in ballot and then you take the advice of the President of the United States and go to a polling place and try to vote, and you are told you've already voted, you are not going to be able to smile at the cop or the judge and say, well, I guess the system's pretty strong then. I was just testing it. That's all. The president said I should test the system, and I did. Going to the second place and knowingly trying to vote when you know that you have already cast a vote is illegal. It's a felony. And the cop isn't going to care that when you say you were trying to test the veracity of the system. The judge isn't going to care when you tell him or her that Donald Trump said it was okay, that he asked you to do it. You will have a felony on your record. You will be indicted and convicted. Because the very nature of this particular crime is that your name is directly attached to it. There won't be any chance of you claiming that you're innocent. I want to stress that in case I don't think that I have any Trump cult members who are listening to me, but if I do, I want to stress to you, this is not a case of politics on one side of the aisle and politics on the other side of the aisle and people just talking points at each other. This is not a case of that. The President of the United States has urged you to commit a felony. Now, he committed a felony by urging you to do that. It's obvious he's not going to be held to account for it, but you will be. You will be. You must not do this. You must not try it, because knowingly trying it is all that's necessary to convict you. You can't claim a mistake. If you knowingly try it, then I want to add that as a recommendation. Never in a million years did I think that I or anyone else would ever have to go in front of any kind of audience and say, the president just told you to do something that is a felony and will get you arrested, so don't do it. But nevertheless, that's the time we live in, and I would like to think that he would have been arrested, or at least served. It's black letter law, and he broke the law. He ought to be served. He's a citizen, just like you and me. But one way or another, whether he's immune, you're not. So I want to start off with that. The next thing I want to mention, the next thing of this mega stuff is tech related. This is a high-tech channel. Now, the larger picture issue here is that naturally, because of the pandemic, the publishing industry has changed, as you've been able to see if you've watched this channel once upon a time. This time last year, I was getting 10 books a day in the mail. And we were happily waddling all the way through them, splashing around in pub sheets and packages and whatnot. I don't get that many printed books in the mail anymore. I have quite a few today that we'll go through, but I usually don't. It's a trickle compared to what it was. Instead, what I get is a bombardment of ebooks. E-galleys, NetGalley widgets, the whole 9 yards. And that has caused me to renew my attention to my ebook reading devices. I got a Kindle Paperwhite to see if maybe that would be the ticket, because so many of you said that it changed your reading life. I got a couple of iPads, really cheap, dirt cheap iPads that I found online, in an attempt to see where my e-reading would fall. I don't want to read ebooks on my laptop. I know a few critics who do that. I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine doing that. So I need a device to read on. So I have a phone. I have a Kindle Paperwhite. I have an 8-inch handheld Kindle Fire. I have a 10-inch handheld Kindle Fire, and I have a small iPad and a larger iPad. And I've been futzing around with all of those, trying to figure out what are the limitations, what are the benefits and whatnot. And one of the things, I mentioned this on a couple of videos lately, one of the limitations of iPads that I've noticed, that can't help but notice once you start to rack up ebooks, and thanks to the generosity of so many of you sending me ebooks, I am starting to rack them up. And one of the things you can't help but notice when that's true is the often meager storage of an iPad. An iPad, you can't expand your storage, not with the device. You'd have to expand it virtually by sending stuff to the Google Cloud, but you can't put in a thumb drive or anything like that into an iPad. So the storage that's on the device is the storage you're stuck with. And that automatically had me looking at the storage on my various iPads, which I'd never looked at before. And it turns out that it varies all over the map. The iPad that I like the most, an iPad Air that I like the most, has 15 gigs of storage total, which is measly. So to make the most of that, on that particular iPad, I scoured everything. I dumped all of the extraneous apps just dedicated to reading, but even so, you're gonna bump your head on 15 gigs in no time at all. Another iPad that I have has like 50 gigs, and oddly enough, something I don't think I have it right here with me. I had the trusty iPad, an iPad 2 from 10 years ago, that I retired. I thought that it was getting all wonky on me. That turns out not to have been true. Something must have just been lodged in the charging port, because once I gave it enough time, it was fine. It took a charge just fine. And that iPad 2 has an enormous amount of storage on it. It's a little bit limited in terms of its interface. It's an older machine, but it has an enormous amount of space for ebooks. And getting the ebooks and uploading them to, I use the Nook app, the Barnes & Noble Nook app. I like it most of all for a reading app. Uploading books to that on that old iPad is easy to do. So I've been filling that. And one of my other iPads also has a relatively large, it's 10 gigs of space left. 10 gigs is a lot of books. That's a lot of books to fill there. It's going to be a little bit depressing watching that ceiling come closer and closer and closer, and realizing that I need to shift over to the older iPad. And this has informed my thinking that maybe in 2021 I might buy an iPad specifically with 500 gigs of storage, so that I don't have to worry about storage anymore. That I might look for it, instead of looking for the model or the size or whatever, that I might look for the storage, buy it specifically for that. But another device that I got is the aforementioned 10-inch Kindle Fire, this thing. I got the device, and I got a piece of armor coating for it that has a nice plastic handle, this handle that rotates all around, so you can set it up as a stand, or you can hold on to it, all stuff like that. Very, very convenient. And it also came with a screen protector as part of the armor, so this is not the naked screen. I can just clean this. And I bought this thing specifically with the knowledge that I would load it with stuff. So I bought the device with a large amount of internal storage, and I bought a card. You can put an SD card up at the top there. I bought a card with a huge amount of storage on it. And I thought, well, there you go. I removed the Amazon Kindle skin on this thing and just put a normal Android skin on it so that I could use the Google Play Store. So it has all the apps that I want, all the functionality that I want, as the same as any other tablet, easily. But when I tried to sideload books from that I got from you or from publishers, when I tried to sideload those books onto the Nook app, it didn't work. I got a notice saying an unknown MIME file not supported by this thing, and it wouldn't open. The covers would show up on the Nook library, which is very taunting, but the books themselves would not open. And I was toweringly furious. I thought, what on earth? That means that all the trouble I went to get this thing, it was dirt cheap, but still. Bear with me. Play your violins for me anyway. I thought, this is all worthless, because I can't sideload books onto this thing. And I put it away on a shelf in high dudgeon, and because it's a Nook, because these things are absolutely great for battery life, a month went by. And when I picked it up again, sort of sheepishly thinking, well, I should probably recharge this because I might have a workaround, it still had 60% power. So the workaround I found was you don't have to be wedded to anything online. In fact, the more doctrinaire you are in your online life, the worse it will be for you. You have to be flexible. You have to be. And what was the problem? In the description that I just gave, you can see it clear as day. The Nook app was the problem. Yes, I prefer reading on it, but so what? It doesn't work for the books. It doesn't sideload on this device. Sideloads just fine on my iPads, but not on this device, which I bought to store books. And very belatedly, because I'm a little bit of a slow turtle when it comes to tech, I very belatedly had the thought, well, why not just use another e-reader? Another reading app on here. Just go to the Google Play Store and download a bunch of them and try them. Maybe one of them will take sideloaded books. Of course, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. I could have saved myself a month of high dudgeon, although I rather like high dudgeon, so I'm glad I didn't. But still, I found a couple of bargain basement e-readers totally free on the Google Play Store. They're not the greatest interface. They're not as nice looking as the Nook, but they'll do the job just fine, and they read these things without any trouble. So all of a sudden, this thing's back in the game. The only problem that I'm having with this thing so far, the only problem, is that it seems a little bit bulky in recognizing that card is there, that extra memory is there. It seems a little bulky in caring about that or recognizing it. The thing actually had the nerve the other day to tell me that I was running out of space on this machine. When I went out of my way to make sure I never heard that about this machine. So, but it turns out there are probably plenty of ways that I can get it to make sure it knows that it has a huge storage card in there, that it's not running out of space. What I'd like, ideally, is to figure out how to move the e-reader, the ebook reader that I downloaded from the Google Play Store, onto that external storage and just load all the books onto it there. So that not only is it never going to run out of room, but that all of it is on that card. If I pop it out of this machine, that it's all there. I'm strongly tempted to do that. I'm also strongly tempted to get a thumb drive, a new modern thumb drive with 500 gigs of storage or something like that, so that I don't have to worry about this quite as much. Because I think I could probably jury rig an adapter for a thumb drive to work on an iPad and to work well enough so I could transfer stuff. These are just the things you have to deal with. If you're going to deal with electronic reading, these are the things you're going to deal with. You got all sorts of advantages, but you have complications that you didn't have with printed books, that are just, one size fits all. So, I want to give you an update on that. I have revived my Kindle Fire, my 10-inch device here, which is great for me because I really like it. It's a really sturdy, really good device, and the minute you put a normal Android skin on it and add the Google Play Store and all of the apps, the minute you're not hobbled by the Amazon Play Store, the Amazon App Store, the device catapults in usability to just 1,000-fold. So I'm really glad that it gets to be an active device of mine again. I just need to look around and see what's the best e-reading app I can find. But your tech update is that this is back in the game. Now you may be thinking, all right, so you have a tablet, you're admitting that it's really good, you love the armor, you love the interface, you have a micro SD card with lots of storage on it. So what you were saying just a minute ago about maybe buying a new iPad in 2021, that's obviously off the table, right? Because you don't need one. Yeah. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's say that's true. And then I want to show you some reading advice. I showed you the other day that I was out and about and I got Asimov's for the first time since March. I got the square-bound Asimov science fiction magazine that has just a collection of short stories. In this case, the headline one is by the great Robert Reed. And I mentioned at the time that I was pining because Analog wasn't in the bookstore. They just got this. And they were very late getting this. They didn't have these magazines at any time in the interval when stores were shut, when warehouses were shut. And when they finally started getting a trickle of new magazines back, they got this, but they didn't get Analogues, which is the other square-bound science fiction magazine that I like to get. And yesterday, my surly houseboy surprised me with a present. He noticed that the bookstore had the latest Analog, and he got it for me. So now I have Analog and Asimov as a team, and now I can commence reading. I've held off on reading this because I didn't have the other. Isn't that ridiculous? But now that I have both, I get to luxuriate again in new science fiction short stories. Fantastic. Also new science fiction nonfiction. Both of them have bits of nonfiction, letters, book reviews, that sort of thing. And then, in addition to all that, we also have mail. And it doesn't look like any of it's from you, which is good, because it's Friday, and that means we've got to hold through a whole week without any of you sending me presents for Frida, or presents for me, or bookmarks, or kitchen magnets, or cookies, or anything like that, which is great. Well, that's good. That's very good. That's progress. So we'll go through. We have 2 packages and a big box. So let's see what we have here. We'll see if we can... Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, this is slated for early November. This is... Metazoa, Animal Life and the Birth of the Mind by Peter Godfrey Smith, who did Other Minds. I don't know how many of you remember that book. It's terrific. He did a book called Other Minds, and this is about Metazoa. Let's see what we have here. I don't have a pub sheet, but we'll... the scuba diving philosopher who wrote Other Minds explores the origins of animal consciousness. In his acclaimed 2016 book Other Minds, the philosopher and scuba diver Peter Godfrey Smith explored the mind of the octopus, closest thing to an intelligent alien on Earth, as he put it. Absolutely true. You'll believe it more when you read his book. But if you've ever, for instance, met an octopus, especially in a laboratory, you won't have any doubt that you are being observed by someone who's as smart as you are. In Metazoa, Godfrey Smith expands his inquiry to animals at large, investigating the evolution of subjective awareness with the assistance of the far-flung species he has met undersea. Combining vivid animal encounters with philosophical reflections on the latest news from biology, Metazoa reveals that even in our high-tech, AI-driven times, there is no understanding minds without understanding nerves, muscles, and our active bodies. The result is a story as rich and vibrant as life itself, one that explains the mystery of animal consciousness in accessible and riveting prose. Fantastic. Fantastic. So I am on board. Absolutely. This is exactly the kind of thing I love, and Other Minds was a winner. So this author has all the goodwill in the bank that he could possibly have. So this is early November. I won't read it right away, but that is great. That is fantastic. How wonderful. Also eminently pitchable. Then we have this next one. It is also one of these white envelopes, but it's very light. It could be a mass market paperback. It is indeed a mass market paperback. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my goodness gracious. That looks painful. All right, this is from late August, so this is late getting to me. It's a finished copy. It's Donna Grant's book, Inferno, a Dark King's novel. I think we saw another one of these, an earlier one of these. Look at that. Like the tattoo of the red dragon on Francis Dollarhide. You are an ant in the afterbirth. You owe me all. None of you know what I'm talking about. It's dated for late August, so this is in your bookstores now. And it's the explosive, most anticipated final book in the best-selling Dark King series, featuring Khan, king of the Dragon Kings. So I need to find the other copies. I'm pretty sure I was sent everything in this series. King of Dragon Kings, driven, ruthless, shrewd. The weight of survival for Constantine and his brethren has pushed him to set aside his own yearnings for now. He's the most powerful of all dragon kings, and Khan will stop at nothing to destroy anyone who dares to threaten his existence. For years, he has had a hidden pain, his desperation, for there is one smoldering beauty that he craves above all else, even if he feels he doesn't deserve her. However, his enemies are at every corner. There is no one left to trust. But none of that matters anymore. There is only one thing Khan wants. With this woman by his side, he can fight for the freedom of his fellow men-at-arms. All Khan has to do is get her to surrender her heart and be his for all time. I vaguely remember, I think I remember enough about the last book in this series to just launch into this one, and it's the 25th of August, so this goes on the reading list for today. And then we have the box. And the box is fairly big, but it's also fairly light. So this might not be a big, heavy finished copy. I can't expect those every single time I turn around. They can't all be Louis XIV. So let's see what we have here. Oh, it's a couple of books. Okay, it's a couple of books, and they're both finished copies. So that's something. Something just saving trouble with envelopes. So what have we got here? What have we got here? Okay, we have fiction and nonfiction. One fiction and one nonfiction, and they are coming to me from a warehouse. See, that's the thing that's going on here, is that publicists aren't at their desks. They're all working remotely. So they're not there to tip in pub sheets to write little notes to me or anybody else. Instead, if you want a copy, they will get the warehouse to send you a book. So it doesn't have any of those personal, it doesn't have pub sheets, but we can read from the dust jacket. So we'll do the nonfiction first. And it is by Joe Marchant, and it is called The Human Cosmos, Civilization and the Stars. It is most certainly not the human cosmos, but that's all right. I bet I get what she means. The human cosmos shows that there is a historically unprecedented disconnect between humanity and the heavens. What would the precedence be, pray tell? Between Vulcans and the heavens? Joe Marchant's beautiful, deeply researched chapters build a bridge back to our cosmic home. For the last 20,000 years, we have led not just an earthly existence, but a cosmic one. Celestial cycles drove every aspect of our daily lives. Our innate relationship with the stars shaped who we are, our art, religious beliefs, political structures, scientific advances, and even our biology. But over the last few centuries, we have separated ourselves from the universe that surrounds us. It's a disconnect with a dire cost. No idea what this pub sheet is saying. Let's just forge on. Our relationship to the stars and planets has moved from wonder and superstition to one where technology is king. Well, yes. This is the only way we know anything about them, is through technology. It's the only thing we know. It's the only way we know anything about them, is through technology. So you're not going to get all pie-eyed on me, right? Are you, for the first century BC, where these are heavenly beings, or windows in a cosmic blanket? Let's see. Now we explore the cosmos through data and screens rather than our own experience of the natural world. You cannot explore the cosmos on Earth. Indeed, in most countries, modern light pollution obscures much of the night sky from view. Okay. Joe Marchant's spellbinding parade of the ways different cultures celebrated the majesty and mysteries of the night sky, okay, there we go, is a journey to the most awe-inspiring view you can ever see, looking up on a clear, dark night. That experience and the thoughts it has engendered have radically shaped human civilization across millennia. To show us how, Joe Marchant takes us to the Hall of the Bulls in the caves of France, to the 5,000-year-old tomb at Newgrange, Ireland, on the winter solstice. We discover Chumash cosmology and visit medieval monks grappling with the nature of time, and Tahitian sailors navigating by the stars. We learn how light reveals the chemical composition of the sun, and we are with Einstein as he works out that space and time are one and the same. He doesn't actually work that out. That's a very poetic way of putting it. Misleadingly poetic. How did 4 billion-year-old meteor inspire search for extraterrestrial life? This book will convince you. Humans must keep looking up. Okay, that sounds a little dodgy. It sounds like this is going to be astrology in the science age. So astrology is junk. It's bunkum. There is no relationship between humans and the stars, other than biochemically. Ultimately, most of the chemicals in our body derive from chemicals that could only have been generated in the heat of alien suns or our own sun. But that is a very tenuous connection. The stars don't look down on us. They don't govern your daily life. They don't inform any kind of horoscope, the present one or the past. They don't do anything like that. They do engender wonder. I don't know what this book will be. In other words, I will check. The one thing that I'm missing because I don't have a pub sheet is the pub date. I'm assuming since it's a finished copy, it's probably September release. So I will look at that, and depending on the release date, I might read this right away. In fact, I'm so curious, I might read it right away anyway. So Joe Marchant is an award-winning science journalist. She has a PhD in genetics and medical microbiology and a Master of Science in communication. She worked as a senior editor at New Scientist and Nature, and her articles have appeared in The Guardian, The Economist, The New York Times, The Washington Post, and Smithsonian Magazine. Okay. Okay, so she has genuine scientific credentials, so this can't be what that pub sheet makes it sound like, what the dust jacket makes it sound like. maybe that's just me being hyper defensive, but I'm too curious, I think, to wait. I'll probably read this tonight and see exactly what the author is saying. And there's no mystical. The point I'm trying to make is there's no mystical connection between the heavens and humans down on Earth. Personal aesthetic connections, yes, because that dust jacket is right. It's an awe-inspiring experience to look up at an unobstructed, beautifully clear night sky. That is an awe-inspiring experience. Try it, I might add, days and days away from land on the open ocean. You will see. You'll talk about awe-inspiring. Or on the top of a very, very tall mountain. I've done it in all of those circumstances. I've also looked at the unobstructed night sky from the Arctic and the Antarctic. And it is awe-inspiring, but it's awe. It's an aesthetic appreciation. And that dust jacket made it sound like a mystical appreciation as well. Like there's some sort of mystical connection between these giant balls of hydrogen and helium, millions and millions of light years away, and humans on Earth. And there isn't. Of course there isn't, since there couldn't be, right? Because for two reasons. One, because that light is millions of years old. So it's a photo album from the past. It's not anything active. And two, there's no mystical element to that, or to life on Earth, or to anything else. There is no mystical element at all to anything. There is no mystical element to existence. So it can't be a mystical experience because they don't exist. So I'm already arguing with poor Jo Marchant. I will make it up to her. I will read her book and see what it has to say. Maybe she'd be willing to Zoom chat with me. All these authors that I pick fights with in these mail halls, maybe they'd be willing to Zoom chat and pick fights in person. Wouldn't that be fun? And then we'll finish up with the novel. That box had two things in it, a novel and a piece of nonfiction. And this also doesn't have a pub sheet. It's kind of nice looking, though. It's by Asha Lemmy, and it's called 50 Words for Rain. That sounds awful familiar. Did we get an advance copy of this? That blurb on the cover is a Good Morning America book club thing, and it is woven, it is part of the cover. It's not a sticker that I can peel off. It's just part of it. It's a Good Morning America book club pick. And for, the arrogance of the people who make these dust jackets, for all they know, Good Morning America will be a distant memory. No one will watch it. It'll be long since off the air when this book is still in my collection. And that is an oddity. I'd rather that it didn't obstruct the artwork of the cover, but that's okay. So let's see what we have here. Who is the author? Asha Lemmy? Oh, she's young. Very young, very beautiful. What have we got here? She was born in Virginia and raised in Maryland. She attended school in Washington, D.C., where she was fortunate to be exposed to a wide variety of cultural influences. She developed a passionate interest in reading at the age of 2 and has been writing stories since the age of 5. Good Lord. After graduating from Boston College with a degree in English literature and creative writing, she relocated to New York City, where she worked in publishing. And this is her first novel. How wonderful. So not only is it a pretty thing and a hardcover, but it's also a book club pick. How wonderful for her. All right, what have we got here? Let's see what we have. Debut novel. How wonderful. Oh, this is not a small novel. This must have taken a huge amount of work. Although, I guess if she's been writing since she was 5, she probably understands that work better than you and I do. So the setting is Kyoto in 1948. And the blurb here says, do not question, do not fight, do not resist. Such is 8-year-old Nori Kamiza's first lesson. So Noriko, it's Nori Kamiza. That's the name of the character. Her first lesson is do not question, do not fight, do not resist. She will not question why her mother abandoned her with only these final words. Oh, so those dictums are from her mother, who left her. She will not fight her confinement to the attic of her grandparents' imperial estate. She will not resist the scalding chemical baths she receives daily to lighten her skin. The child of a married Japanese aristocrat and her African-American GI lover, Nori is an outsider from birth. Her grandparents take her in only to conceal her, fearful of a stain on the royal pedigree that they are desperate to uphold in a changing Japan. Obedient to a fault, Nori accepts her solitary life despite her natural intellect and curiosity. But when chance brings her older half-brother Akira to the estate that is his inheritance and destiny, Nori finds in him an unlikely ally with whom she forms a powerful bond, a bond their formidable grandparents cannot allow, and that will irrevocably change the lives they were always meant to lead. Because now that Nori has glimpsed a world in which perhaps there is a place for her after all, she's ready to fight to be part of it, A battle that just might cost her everything. Spanning decades and continents, 50 Words for Rain is a dazzling epic about the ties that bind, the ties that give you strength, and what it means to be free. This sounds fantastic. This sounds fantastic. Oh, this sounds fantastic. Okay, all right. Well, all right. I'm not the only one to think so, because the back is covered in blurbs. The back is not anything except blurbs. Well, good for you, young lady. Good for you. Your first novel, you have a back page full of blurbs, and it sounds like a winner. I wonder, though, is this based on family stories? Let's go to her acknowledgments page and cheat just a little. So, she thanks her editor. She thanks everyone at Dutton. She thanks her agent. She thanks her friends. She thanks her father. She thanks her mother and her aunts. Thanks her grandparents. More friends. Other writers. A professor. Her stepmother. Her darling Justin, who makes her feel like a swan. And thank you to everyone who reads this book, to the lost, the found, and the somewhere in betweens. Oh, and she ends her acknowledgement with this line. And lastly, thank you to my former self for surviving the rain. Okay, so I'm thinking that this is probably, maybe I'm just being unfair. I'm thinking just from the basis of all of the 21st century fiction that I've seen this year so far, I'm guessing that this is drawn from some sort of family tradition, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This sounds wonderful. And again, I don't know the date on it. I'm assuming it's a September thing. I want to dive into it right away. Wow, so I got two books in this box that I want to dive into right away. One nonfiction and one fiction. Wow, so her half-brother, who is going to inherit the estate. So no matter how starch and imperial her grandparents are, he's the one who will rule. He's the one who will... Oh, I want to read it. I want to find out what's going to happen. Fantastic. All right, great. So I'm not getting bombarded with books anymore. What I'm getting, I'm really liking, or at least the sound of it. I may read both of these tonight. So there we have 50 Words for Rain, which is Asha Lemmy's debut novel. A lovely design thing. Look at how the novel is in a cartouche like that. Wish this weren't there, but only aesthetically. It actually makes me very happy to see it because it's a huge feather in the cap of this young author. Her debut novel not only looks so good, sounds so good, but gets the boost of a big high-profile book club. Great. And then we have The Human Cosmos, The Civilization and the Stars. The wonder of looking up at the night sky, or the stars determine our destiny. We will see. We will see. Then Metazoa, Animal Life and the Birth of the Mind, by the author of Other Minds. Fantastic book. I strongly recommend it to you. And this one, I have no reason to doubt that this will be any different. And then Inferno, the last of the Dark King's novel. Khan, the king of the dragon kind. And finally, Asimov's and Analog, which I've been holding off on. Now I get to gorge on them because I have them both for now. And I'm just hoping that means, plague notwithstanding, that they will arrive next month on time as well. That would be great. So there's that, and there's a tech update. This is babies. We almost forgot babies. Oh my, no. All right, let's we'll quickly go through them because this is getting long, even for a Friday MegaStuff video. Of course, I have baby pictures. I put out the call for dog pictures, for Shakespeare pictures in honor of ShakeTube, which starts this weekend. And I said, feel free to include pictures of your dogs while you're sending me pictures, and quite a few of you sent me pictures of cats instead of dogs. Even though I don't only play for the other team, I'm the captain of the other team. And that is true this time around. We have cats. There's one, looking bored, haughty, and superior. And then we have another cat, looking bored, haughty, and superior. But at least we have Shakespeare in this one. And then one of you know who you are, sent this final baby. This is a baby picture after my own heart. Because it's Meg. It's a Megalodon. I don't think the sender of this picture actually has a Megalodon. I don't think anybody does, but look at that. So there we go. I couldn't miss that. So that is your MegaStuff Friday video for today. We have nautical fiction, New Testament nonfiction. We have all sorts of stuff, and a tech update about side-loading videos, or books. So that's going to do it. Good Lord. What a huge amount of videos. I do go on. Sorry about that. But again, I want to add a small caveat, like I did with my Friday Reads video, which is that we may have a bit of disruption in routine for the weekend. Because the weekend has lots of stuff going on, including a huge Q&A. So no Saturday MegaStuff video, no Sunday MegaStuff video, maybe, I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. Either way, I'm going to wrap this monstrosity up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.